Welcome to the very first episode of the Tensor podcast. This podcast is dedicated to explore projects building on Bittensor and EVM compatible environments, from AI subnets to DeFi and creative experiments. Our goal is to give you a front row seat to ideas, builders, and decentralized intelligence technologies. For our first episodes, we want to start with something quite unique. Our guest today is Robro, one of the founders behind ALCI, the first crypto art collection tokenized on Bittensor EVM. Welcome to the show, sirs. We're thrilled to have you as the very first guest. For those who might be hearing about ALCI for the first time, how would you describe ALCI?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on, guys. It's great to be the first episode. I started ALCI. I think a great way to describe ALCI is we are essentially where we utilize subnet outputs from subnet 17, which is 404 gen, and then we have our own generative art algorithms that we wrote that transform the outputs of 404 gen, and then we create a lot of interesting and unique art. And kind of the background behind these algorithms, there's a lot of different concepts that we can get into, but we go into things like philosophy, emotions, different ideas, different concepts that I all thought up myself on how to make the art.
Yeah, I noticed. One could say this is a art for art's sake type of project, or do you think ALCI is also gonna delve into utilities? What's the deal with the project?
Yeah, I mean, it mostly started because I wanted to make some really, really interesting art, something that hasn't been done. You know, there's really no 3D art that exists across entities in general where you can fully interact with the 3D object in space. You can zoom in, rotate in all directions. Like we are one of the first there. Obviously, there are previous projects, but so that was one thing I wanted to do. Is like it's really a bridge between traditional profile pictures, and now this is much more abstract art. But yeah, so I think it is abstract art, but I think there's a lot of interesting ways the project can go. First thing we kind of want to do is build this into a larger studio, art studio eventually. Using Bittensor, we might think of interesting ways to use the pieces and use other subnets to make interesting art on top of ALCI. And then I think another thing is we also want to support the EVM ecosystem. So we're building out a lot of in-house things because the infrastructure isn't there, right? For Bittensor EVM, there's no marketplace. There's no like viewing thing like an OpenSea, right? None of these things exist for the Bittensor EVM. So our goal is kind of to build these things from the ground up and really support the ecosystem. So I think that's an interesting way we can value add past just the art.
Yeah, I've seen that AI and generative algorithms are kind of core to your process as you're using the subnet 17. Is there any other type of subnet that you considered for the creation of your art, or was 17 the go-to answer to the question?
Yeah, 17 was definitely the go-to. I mean, obviously, all these subnets are really, very cool. They're all doing cool things, but we specifically wanted to make art, right? And then how are you going to do that? You probably want to use something that's generating an object, generating an image of some sort, and then kind of took it further. I don't want to make just a regular, like humanoid-looking profile picture, even though I'm wearing one right now as my profile picture. But I didn't want to do that, and so we thought of, what's the best possible subnet? A 3D object would be really cool because when it's a 3D object, you can make it very abstract. You can make it interesting. And the best possible subnet that we saw for 3D assets was subnet 17. They were doing tons of work. We talked to Ben, the founder, and he's great. We worked with them and figured out kind of how to build this project out because I had an original concept. And then, we kind of came to the conclusion that subnet 17 was the best way to go forward.
It's very unique for sure. And the philosophy behind the projects is very intriguing as well. Would you like to delve a bit deeper into that?
Yeah, I can go into the concept behind the project. So if you're familiar with subnet 17, you'll know what a point cloud is. If you're not familiar, I can explain. Essentially, you can understand a point cloud just broadly, like as an overhead view. Like point cloud is a set of points that have unique variables. So these variables are location, color, size. It can be opacity, it can be rotation. And you have these points, and you can basically generate any object from a surface level view with these 5 variables, right? If you have a pencil and you knew the location of every surface area point on the pencil, you could rebuild the shape of the pencil. Now, if you know the color of where every color is supposed to be, you can make the yellow part of the pencil, the black part of the pencil, the eraser part of the pencil, right? So with these variables, with points, you can practically build any object. So knowing this, and knowing we were using subnet 17, I thought, how can we make some kind of art that somewhat looks like, if you go to the Bittensor website, Bittensor logo, right, it's just a neural net looking object. I wanted to make art that somewhat was similar, right? I wanted to have nodes that connect, and the reason they connect should be vastly different from every single object. So kind of the process was, the art algorithms that we write, they strip away a lot of points for various reasons. One of the reasons we have like an angry or like an anarchist algorithm, which means this algorithm essentially removes 99% of the points that we generate from an object on subnet 17. And then after we remove these 99% of points, we connect them. We use we use a k-means algorithm. We use these different algorithms that connect the points at varying velocities, varying lengths, etc. So that's one algorithm. We have another one, which is kind of the inverse of this. After we remove the points, we actually mirror the image in multiple dimensions. It's X, Y, and Z dimensions. We mirror it in random directions. And this is more of like a rebuilding. This is a algorithm about growth, right? After, you can imagine, let's say we generate a cheetah with subnet 17. Algorithm 1 would purely just remove 99% of the points off of the cheetah. What would be left is, a skeleton, a bunch of points that somewhat resemble a cheetah, but you wouldn't be able to tell that was a cheetah previously. Algorithm 2 does that, except it flips it in a different direction. Algorithm 3 amplifies algorithm 1, and we make the lines look much more crude, much more sharp. And you can more often tell what the object originally was. We have different like household items like a kettle or a chair, and these look much clearer through algorithm 3 than any other algorithm. And then algorithm 4, which is one of my favorite, it took me the longest to think of. It really represents like a rebirth. It represents chaos. It's really interesting. We're doing a lot of like cosine and sine functions on, it's a 3D set of points, right? So they're moving in all different directions. We're running these different functions on top. We're connecting the points in a lot of different ways. And you get these very like curvy kind of, almost like circle-like, but they're very weird objects. You can take a look at some point. But yeah, these are the 4 algorithms. I'm not sure if I explained them very well, but that's kind of the idea behind it. But yeah, what we're doing is we are taking an object, we are stripping away points, and the idea behind stripping away points is, if you have a square, right, and you take a point away, you now have a triangle, right? But then if you go forward, you go from a triangle to a square to a hexagon or whatever, pentagon to a hexagon, right? So, but everything after the triangle, its ancestor was a triangle, right? Everything after the square, its ancestor was a square, or anything with 4 sides. So points and shapes all have like a singular like set of points that they descend from, right? The square comes from the singular point. The triangle comes from the singular point in space. A line comes from a singular point in space as you add more and more points into the sphere. So our thinking is like, okay, if you have something that looks like a pencil, right, for example, and you take away a lot of points from the pencil, it may resemble something like a ruler because of the rectangular shape, right? It may represent something like a bullet because of all the points you remove there, right? So shapes oftentimes look like other shapes. Objects oftentimes resemble other objects. And we wanted to show that, even if this thing might have started as a cheetah, it might have started as a cruise ship, it might have started as the Eiffel Tower, as we strip away points, as we apply our generative art algorithms, it becomes something that you can barely refer to what it originally was. But then if you really think about it, you could infer like, okay, I can see how this could have been a cheetah in the past.
I was indeed fascinated by the idea of devolution of the form of the shape. So this is basically it, correct?
Yep, exactly. This is the de-evolution, right? You have evolution, which is a concept that everyone knows about, and this is now the de-evolution.
Well, ALCI is basically the first digital project on the Bittensor EVM, which is, in my opinion, a great milestone. And the philosophy behind it, it's also very cool. Like, actually, the output of all these algorithms working together creates very interesting shapes. But let's take one step back, and I wanted to ask you, why did you guys choose Bittensor? What unique benefits did you guys find beside working with subnets to create your art project?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think Bittensor, it's a really interesting and really inspiring story. Myself, I'm really interested in decentralized AI. So, knowing we wanted to use crypto as a distribution venue, as a digital art venue, right? Like, what is a logical step if we want to have a generating output? I think Bittensor has the best models when it comes to decentralized AI for this generative art type of thing. I mean, and even on top of that, right? Like the Bittensor community is great. We work with a lot of people in the space, and I can also explain like, I mean, that was my reason why I like Bittensor for this project, but also I can explain there was a program through the university called Dorm Builders. It was sponsored by a venture capital fund that worked with Bittensor, and this is the fund's called Collab Currency, and they basically work with Bittensor to set up these grants programs where students can build a project. They're given a grant from the Open Tensor Foundation, and yeah, they kind of build anything they want, any track, any field. And then we saw that art was a possibility. I knew I wanted to make art, so we applied, we got into the grant program, and we just got a ton of resources and support, and we knew it was the right way, the right place to build our art.
Nice. I was actually about to ask what was the feedback from the network itself, and whether did you see ALCI opening the doors for more creative projects on Bittensor. So you say that the Open Tensor Foundation is actually supporting such initiatives.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, directly or indirectly, like they worked with the VC fund to support students building in the EVM in the space and just get more acceleration, more growth, more applications on the playing field. At least like for us, obviously, we're still trying to grow the project. For me, I think this is one of my favorite things I've ever done in my life is building this art. So I really work, all the time to network it and build it out and get more people's opinions on it. Obviously, it's like it's my art, right? So I want people to think favorably of it. But yeah, I mean, the Open Tensor Foundation totally, like the grants that they gave us through the Builders program totally helped us. It helped us on so many different fronts. So yeah, I mean, they're totally indirectly, directly like helping students, and they really want to see more applications put out.
That's awesome. Perhaps you guys will get to create the first OpenSea of Bittensor. That could be interesting. At least Bittensor EVM for as of right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's an interesting path. Like obviously, yeah, this is I think technically even the first art on Bittensor in general, um, and then obviously on the EVM. So it should be interesting. I think what I want to do is like show that any kind of art can be made. Right, it doesn't need to be a profile picture. It doesn't need to be like something random. Like it can be a lot of thought behind art, and that can come through the Bittensor network through the Bittensor intelligence you get from subnets. Yeah, I think we're working right now to build a marketplace, and it should be pretty awesome once we get it put out.
Oh, nice. I did the question without actually knowing. I'm very curious. I'm very curious to see a Pudgy Penguin stripped of all its points, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah.
So, talking about your audience, who's ALCI for? Like, is this a project aimed at crypto art enthusiasts, just Bittensor community, a mix of both? Like, who is your ultimate target audience? Who are you trying to reach on the long run?
I think it's a good question. I think it's a mix of both. Obviously, we want to get more exposure in the BitTensor community, of course, and also in the crypto art community. We've gotten reception from both sides, so that's been good. But I think yeah, just growing the exposure overall is very important. Um, like theoretically, I'd want this to even be of the quality once enough infrastructure is built out of the quality to be like even in a regular like a non crypto art venue, right? Like I think that if we can get these concepts understood by people, it's a lot of words. I rambled a lot when I was explaining because it's very deep. Like there's a lot of random different things, different pieces to the art. So hopefully we get the message out. The BitTensor network obviously is huge. The community is huge. So ideally through them, and obviously through the regular crypto community, we can slowly build the network up of the project. And this will make it very influential for future Bittensor people. That was a huge thing for me, is that opening up the doors for future EVM applications, but then also showing that like, hey, Bittensor can really produce great art, for the rest of the crypto art community.
Yeah, I believe so too. Your collection is currently generated upon creation, correct? Like it's never seen before any piece. Um, People currently can mint the pieces because the mint is live, correct?
Correct. Yeah, yeah. So it's fully generated. We do have the only part that we have is we generated the subnet 17 objects ahead of time because we wanted to curate which objects we got, and also just filter out any bugs or issues with the objects, and then make sure every object was perfect. But from that point on, everything is generated on Mint from applying the generative art algorithms and tokenizing and everything.
Would you think there are any upcoming events or drops that the Bittensor community should look out for?
For ALCI or for Bittensor EVM in general?
For ALCI.
Yeah. I think we were producing a lot of content right now and trying to make really interesting, trying to get the aesthetic to look really interesting and have a lot of cool visuals. So definitely check out the Twitter page. We'll be dropping a lot of videos, a lot of interesting informational pieces. Marketplace should be coming up soon, which should be a huge value add. If you don't want to generate a mint and you want to buy an existing piece, the marketplace will be great. If any minters so far wanted to list their piece, and I think kind of just building the network as it goes. There should be some interesting stuff. We're building a portfolio page so that users can see stats about their project, about their pieces. Also building out an EVM dashboard. So kind of pulling from Tau.app and using some of the data they have. So kind of building out analytics about ALCI in general. So all these little things, but I think slowly we make this into a full, like piece by piece, it becomes fully fleshed out, becomes on par with some of the top art projects that have been on Ethereum before. And just build the network out and have fun along the way and make sure people like the mission and understand the philosophy.
Awesome. So basically, you would say that the ALCI current mission, if you could express that in one sentence, would be bringing forward the AI generation of art on Bittensor, or is there more to it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more, right? It's like, because it's not just AI. Obviously, we use AI, but it's a lot of creative thinking involved, a lot of math involved, a lot of programming that's non AI. So I think it's a combination of, building apps on Bittensor, building products using Bittensor subnet outputs, Bittensor subnet intelligence, and then combining that with, your human ingenuity and your thoughts so you can make something really creative and something really interesting in a way that the subnet by itself maybe you just can't do.
Generally speaking, the way in which these shapes are coming to form, like I like the aesthetic. It's very in line with the Bittensor ecosystem, the way in which they branded the whole page of the OTF. Yeah, it's very cool. Very cool.
Yep. Thank you.
Is there
Thank you.
is there anything we missed in regards to the philosophy behind the project, or anything else you want to add in that regards?
Yeah, I think we covered a lot of it. I think like on the website there is somewhat of a short essay that we wrote, kind of explaining the project more in depth and in written form if anyone wanted to go back. Let me think. I think as evolution of form, I think it's a very interesting concept. I think the generative art algorithms being applied as different forms of philosophy, different forms of emotion, I think is interesting. We're going for it's very abstract, obviously. So sometimes it might be hard to understand if you're just looking at it. But we want it to be like just shapes, right? These are just 3D shapes in space and kind of the reasoning that maybe you want to do if you're viewing the art is like, how did this turn from, we have the object description on the right side panel. How did this turn from a cheetah into this really interesting object? How did this turn from a kitchen stove to this object? How did this turn from toothpaste to this object, right? There's a lot of interesting thinking that you can do. And I think that's kind of the thought process that we want to have people, want to make people have when they're viewing the art.
I might sound a generalist, but I really want a Pepe stripped out of its points.
Pepe?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
anyways, I feel like we want to keep the content very digestible for our listeners, so we might get to wrap things up.
Sure.
Awesome. Well, this has been a very fascinating conversation, especially because I really like once again, like the philosophy behind the project, the way in which you guys thought about it, the way in which you guys operated with the help of another subnet within the space. It was very cool. Like I support the idea and encourage everybody to go check out the project. Maybe even mint some NFTs on their own. That would be awesome, especially in terms of support for you guys. And hope to see something new coming out from your upcoming future studio very soon.
Yep,
That would
yep.
be
Thank you.
would be
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, yeah. Building everything out, it should be great. Thank you so much, guys, for having me on and letting me speak. Maybe I rambled too much, but yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Roblo, and thank you for joining us in our first Tensor podcast episode. I think that's all for today. If you enjoyed this conversation and want to discover more groundbreaking projects in the Bittensor ecosystem, make sure to follow us and share this episode. We're just getting started, and see you in the next episode.